your centuries-long pillage and plunder of Africa will come to an end, and you'll be so bankrupt that you'll sell the Sistine Chapel on eBay. Imagine the delusional state of these people. That's why I said it's pathetic. It's truly pathetic. The absolutely bizarre alternative reality bubble that you've constructed for yourselves. You lied about yourselves. You lied about who you are so much that I don't think you even know anymore.
Hello guys, once again welcome back to my YouTube channel, and of course I'm your host Larry. So in today's video I want us to listen to this video from Shahid Bolson. Well, allow me to call him a factual genius. Well, Shahid Bolson is a factual genius. He's been known majorly for his movement against what the Westerners are doing to Africa and all other black nations. They oppress and cripple Africa. Any country that has a very valuable resource, the Westerners do what they can, and by all means, as he mentioned in this video, like you listen to it, that they acquire it by corruption, and of course it includes killing. Now, his movement has caused him some troubles because he's going against what the Westerners are preaching out here. And well, most of his social medias were actually banned, or rather he was banned from accessing his social platforms. Well, back to our video now. I want you to listen to this video whereby the factual genius Shahid Bolson is exposing the Westerners' secret plans on how they have been crippling Africa and all black nations, and that includes the Caribbean. So guys, let's dive into this video, but I'd humbly request you, if you're watching my videos for the first time, kindly consider subscribing to my channel and like this video, engage into the comment section. And by doing this, by liking this video and commenting, it makes sure that, or rather it ensures that this video has been pushed to a wider and wider range, or rather audience, as much as possible. So help me spread this message and this video to as much people as we can. So thank you, and let's have a dive into this video.
Where is the African equivalent of the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel? Where is the Australian Aboriginal equivalent of the works of J.S. Bach? I rest my case. We have been blessed in Europe to have had good climate, good conditions. The way we organized our politics meant we had to have good brains, we had good ideas. And we have spread those to the rest of the world. And now the rest of the world is coming back saying, no, you terrible oppressors. But in actual fact, the average man or woman on the street in Africa doesn't think like that. It's the leaders, the people who are themselves stealing the wealth of their own countries, are using Western guilt against us.
I mean, the choice is yours about how you want to tear this apart. It's absolutely grotesque, obviously. That's kind of pathetic, frankly. I mean, first of all, to be fair, this does appear to be very clipped and edited, so I'm not sure what this man said in the full interview. But if this clip is representative of what he said and what he believes, and if it accurately sums up his position, okay, this man is an anachronism. It's like you opened up a time capsule from 1870 or something. But I mean, this is the usual thing they do, taking collective credit for individual achievement, exaggerating the brilliance of that achievement, while completely ignoring the collective criminality of the society in which that individual achievement occurred. This is what they always do. Also, of course, he's taking advantage of the fact that he knows that his society has successfully suppressed any information, any recognition, or any knowledge of the achievements of non-European civilizations. So when he asks, for example, when he asks for an African equivalent of the Sistine Chapel, he knows that his audience already thinks that no one else on earth has ever accomplished anything except for Europeans. Meanwhile, you could fit 16 Sistine Chapels in the Blue Mosque in Sultan Ahmed Masjid in Istanbul. Michelangelo took about 4 years, famously, to paint the ceiling the frescoes of the Sistine Chapel. That's about 460 square meters. Meanwhile, there's over 20,000 hand-painted tiles on the ceiling of the Blue Mosque, covering 1,800 square meters, and they did it in less time. But again, this is also the same old Western argument of, we must be good, we must be wonderful, because we created nice things. So we don't actually have to compare and contrast our nice things with their nice things, because nice things do not a civilization make. Nice things do not indicate that you're good, that you're virtuous, that you're intelligent, that you're moral, or that you're civilized. Not to mention, it's also a matter of, what any given people value. So, for instance, he mentions Bach. Well, music and entertainment are not necessarily universally valued as worthwhile investments of time and study and energy and so forth. Not everyone takes it that serious. So you talk about Bach, for instance. Well, who did Bach compose for? He composed for the church and he composed for the aristocracy. So you can't actually disentangle his music from the very systems of oppression that you're denying existed. It's actually quite an unfortunate example for him to cite, to be honest. It's profoundly ironic. At the time of Bach, Europeans would only bathe maybe 2 or 3 times a year. So when you listen to Bach, just know that he probably composed that music while stewing in months of his own body odor. But you know what they did, right? You know what the Europeans did? Instead of being clean, instead of trying to clean themselves, they just used perfume to hide the stench. Muslims were washing themselves 5 times a day or more, and with a minimum of bathing once a week. In the desert, mind you. Since the 7th century. Full shower, no less than once per week. In the desert. Meanwhile, Europeans, even with 500,000 lakes and rivers and ponds and rain throughout the year, these genteel, sophisticated people would literally go months and months without cleaning their bodies. And then just try to stifle the stink with perfume. And that's just what they do now. That's what they do now. That's what he's doing. Bach is a perfume. The Sistine Chapel is a perfume that they spray over the stench of their civilizational filth. You think that the music of Johann Sebastian Bach is supposed to be evidence of the greatness of Western civilization? We're supposed to just, when you talk about Bach or Beethoven or whoever, we're supposed to adopt an uncritical romanticism about that period of time and completely ignore the deeply oppressive context in which that music was created? No. You can't pretend that the brilliance of his compositions, which was brilliant, you can't pretend that that reflects the society that he was in. Bach composed within the framework of the Lutheran Church, which was an institution that was completely intertwined with systems of control and exploitation in Europe. The very church that commissioned his works was also instrumental in enforcing religious dogma, supporting class oppression, legitimizing the persecution of entire groups of people, particularly the Jews in Europe. The church demanded unquestioning obedience, not to God, but obedience to the social hierarchies that ruled over every aspect of life in Europe. The church upheld the system in which the peasants labored under crushing financial obligations, where if they failed to tithe to the church, it could lead to public shaming or punishment. The church served as a moral enforcer for a feudalistic system that perpetuated poverty and inequality. Bach just made it sound pretty. The same way that this man is using Bach to try to make it sound pretty, just like a perfume on an unwashed, sweaty, stinking, feudal lord. The more I think about it, really, the more it seems Bach is actually a perfect example for these people. In Bach's Germany, the Germany of Bach, Jews were vilified and marginalized, and their rights were restricted. Their communities were segregated, and their humanity itself was constantly questioned. This bigotry in Europe was embedded in the doctrines and the sermons of the Lutheran Church, Bach's church. Martin Luther himself, whose ideas, as we know, shaped the very institution that Bach served, wrote anti-Jewish tracts that were invoked to justify centuries upon centuries of persecution. Bach was paid by the tithes that were extracted from serfs by the church. His music was just part of the opulence and the decadence of the church that was enjoyed by the elites of the church and by the aristocrats, enjoyed at the expense of the common people. That's your society. This is the truth about Western so-called civilization. All of its cultural achievements, as extraordinary as they make them sound, all of their cultural achievements are always intertwined with their systems of oppression. Anything that they can point to in terms of their material achievements, they're always made possible by means of mass misery and suffering. I mean, he talks about Africa and the Aboriginal people of Australia. Do you really want to talk about what Europe was doing in Africa when Michelangelo was painting the Sistine Chapel, or when Bach was entertaining the aristocracy of Germany? You really want to talk about what they were doing? Rape, pillage, mass murder, torture, and slavery. That's what you were doing. That's what you were doing with all of your good brains and all of your good ideas. Stealing everyone's resources to take them back to your allegedly blessed good climate of Europe. I mean, whoever described Europe as having a good climate and good conditions? Good Lord, does he think everyone is stupid? I mean, in the Middle Ages, only about 10% of Europe's land was even arable. And by the 1600s, they'd only increased it by about 10 to 20% that they could farm. It's cold and wet half of the year. You have scant natural resources compared to all of the countries that you invaded, all of the countries that you stole from, which is why you did that in the first place, because you don't have anything. And you treated each other in Europe so bad that whoever could run away to America did so. I mean, when the Americans back in the day, the original, founding fathers, so-called, when they talked about freedom and independence, who were they talking about freedom from who? Freedom from who? Independence from who? They were escaping all of those good brains and all those good ideas, you with your well-organized politics and so on, because it was abject tyranny and oppression. You drove your own people to flee from you. That's why America exists. Not even Bach or Beethoven made them change their minds. They wanted to get as far away from you as they could. And how are you going to talk about what Africa doesn't have when you either destroyed it or you stole it, anything that they did have? And you made yourselves wealthy and comfortable in Europe by doing that. The kingdom of Benin, you destroyed the great city walls of Benin, the royal palace, you looted and you pillaged. And the same in Mali, the same in Zimbabwe, on and on. You destroy everyone else's stuff and then brag about being the only one who has stuff. I mean, I don't know anything about the Aboriginals of Australia, to be honest. But I know that you treated them like animals. That much I know. And you think that because you had Bach and Michelangelo, you were entitled to do that? Is that what you're saying? Is that your thinking? You think that any artistic or scientific or technological accomplishment that the West does that gives you some kind of a line of credit in savagery and inhumanity? As long as you make a pretty picture, you can treat people however you want? And whenever they say things like, we spread our ideas or we spread our values around the world, all I see in my mind is a cloud of locusts. Yes, you spread. You spread like a pestilence. Honestly, it really does amaze me that people like this guy even exist today in 2024. That there's still people who think like this and speak like this in public. It's astonishing. There's too much to say about it, really. I mean, talking about African leaders stealing from their own people, right? Using Western guilt, he says, against Europe. France takes $500 billion every year from Africa directly into their treasury. Western predatory multinationals pursue extractive industries in Africa, taking at least $50 billion every year. Debt payments to Western lenders are around $20 billion every year. Everybody knows who's stealing from who. You want to ask about the African equivalent of Michelangelo? Well, where's the African equivalent of King Leopold? Where's the African equivalent of Hitler? Because he was your son too. Where's the African equivalent of the British East India Company? Where are the African colonizers? Where's the African equivalent of Harry Truman, who wiped out 250,000 people in a matter of seconds? Where's the African equivalent of that maniac Winston Churchill, or the genocidal fanatic Teddy Roosevelt, or George W. Bush, or Joe Biden? I mean, the continuity of your crimes is stunning. You're absolutely consistent from your history until today, from 500 years ago to 0500 this morning. You're just the same. But alhamdulillah, the world is changing around you. The world is changing. You don't change, but the world is changing. Yeah, okay, maybe there is corruption in some African leadership. Sure. But you know why? We all know what will happen. We all know what you would do to them if they weren't corrupt. We know what you did to Lumumba. We know what you did to Sankara. We know what you'd do right now, if you could, to Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso. And we pray for his safety from you. We all know it isn't safe for any African leader, for any leader in the global south, or for any leader in the Muslim world to be a man of integrity. We know it's not safe. The last thing that you want is for any leader to come to power in Africa who actually cares about his people. Look at how you tell on yourselves. You tell on your own selves, you know? You're calling your own collaborators corrupt. Your own collaborators in Africa, you call them corrupt because you know that anyone who lets you do what you do in Africa can't be anything but corrupt. Those are your friends. Because you know that the moment any genuine leaders emerge, like in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Senegal, and so on, when leaders like this emerge across the continent, leaders who serve their own people instead of serve you, leaders who practice what you call radical resource nationalism, meaning they have the audacity to think that their country's natural resources actually belong to them and don't belong to you. Well, you know that when those leaders, those types of leaders emerge across the continent, then the jig is up. You know, when that happens, your centuries-long pillage and plunder of Africa will come to an end, and you'll be so bankrupt that you'll sell the Sistine Chapel on eBay. Imagine the delusional state of these people. That's why I said it's pathetic. It's truly pathetic. The absolutely bizarre alternative reality bubble that you've constructed for yourselves. You lied about yourselves. You lied about who you are so much that I don't think you even know anymore. And then you'll kill anyone who can expose you. You know, if your so-called civilization were a person, the West would be the talented Mr. Ripley. Just a psychopathic fraud, an imposter, who wants what everyone else has and who takes it by murder, and then he pretends that he's independently wealthy. Don't you grasp the fact that you cannot gaslight the world anymore? I mean, you already couldn't, to be honest. You already couldn't. The jig was already up. The game was already over. But now with Gaza, everyone can see who you really are. That rabid attack dog of yours, Israel, that you told everyone was a poodle. People in the Muslim world, people in the global south, they don't see any of you, any of the Western leaders, not Macron, not Biden, not Schultz, not Starmer, not Trudeau. All we see is Netanyahu. We only just see Netanyahu's face when we look at any of you with blood dripping from his mouth. You're all Netanyahu, and Netanyahu is all of you. And it's the same with this guy in the video. I don't actually even know who this person is, but I don't have to know who he is. He's just a colonizer, imperialist, terrorist, apologist. And frankly, I love the fact that these types of people are now reduced to just talking with each other, you know? The Douglas Murrays, the Jordan Petersons, the John Andersons, you know, the Sam Harrises and so forth. All these neo-colonialist, Western supremacists. All they can do now is just skulk onto each other's podcasts, huddle with each other around their microphones, talking about how wonderful the West really is and how terribly everyone has misunderstood them. Everyone is just, the rest of the world is just so ungrateful, you know, for all the great and glorious gifts that Europe bestowed so kindly on all of the lands that they ravaged and subjugated. 20 million people killed in the Belgian Congo, 2 million in Algeria by the French, not to mention 13 million enslaved, a quarter of whom died en route, plus thousands lynched once they got there. No, all your art, all your music, all your so-called cultural achievements, your Sistine Chapel, your frescoes, your Bach, your Mozart, your Beethoven, what have you. This is all nothing but a lovely silk tapestry that you throw over a mass grave where you want to have a picnic. Like I said, it's nothing but a perfume that you spray to cover the stench of your history. But Africa is cleaning house. Asia is cleaning house. The Muslim world is cleaning house. The whole global south is tired of your unhygienic ways. Turns out that whitewashing doesn't actually make you clean.
Once again, allow me to welcome you back to my commentary on this video. So welcome back, and thank you for sticking around with me up to this point of this video. And now let's congratulate our factual genius, Shahid Bolson. Now, his message, it does not just expose the Westerners' ways of how they've been crippling Africa and all the black nations, and that includes the Caribbean, but also this should be a wake-up call to our leaders here in Africa, over there in the Caribbean, to open up their eyes and not serve the Westerners, but instead serve us as the citizens of their country. He has exposed what happened to Sankara, to Lumumba, and also to Muammar Gaddafi, that when the Westerners see a very promising leader who's going to serve his own people, but not them, they do what they can. They do everything they can to eliminate him. And that's, of course, unaliving him. He mentioned the names of those leaders, best leaders that Africa could have, and what the Westerners did to them. In short, the Westerners, what they want to do is they don't want to ever see Africa develop. They give Africa huge amount of loans that they know that this country will not be able to repay it, so that in nearby future they reclaim part of these countries, and they mostly take that part whereby it's full of minerals, of valuable resources. And that when you do that, you are crippling this country. When you take something that's valuable from someone, you are crippling that person. That person will not be able to sustain himself, but instead he'll keep on depending on you, bowing to you. And of course, like they say, whoever feeds you controls your mouth and all your actions. And now that's what the Westerners are doing to Africa and all the black nations. Because we all know of the ongoing war in Haiti. We've seen countries volunteer to send their soldiers over in the name of they are helping restore peace in Haiti. Now, there is an article I read that involves the Kenyan government. Now, in that article, it read that, or rather it was a Haitian citizen exposing that there is a very valuable stone in Haiti that the United States discovered. Now, the United States, since they couldn't go to Haiti by themselves, now they bribe Kenyan government to send their soldiers over to Haiti in the name of restoring peace. But now, the Kenyan soldiers, I don't know if it's to their awareness or they just don't know, or rather following orders from their superiors. While they do that, they are helping the United States take that valuable stone from Haiti. The Kenyan government is being bribed and being used to take what belongs to the Haitians in the name of they are helping restore peace in that country. I mean, that's just another message to show how our African leaders have become puppets to these Westerners. You vote in somebody, and instead of that person serving you according to your will, according to the will of the country, he does what the Westerners orders him to do. Such leaders are very selfish. They are very greedy. How can a leader turn his back on his people? But I guess that's not new here in our countries, mostly here in Africa. That's not new to us. Look at Ibrahim Traore. Look at what he has done in a span of 2 years. Set Burkina Faso free. He is doing what Sankara had started. And you see how they eliminated Sankara. But Ibrahim Traore, being that bold leader, as bold as he is, he said he's not a politician, he is a soldier. Look at how he has fought for his people, for his country. And we are seeing Burkina Faso begin to develop. He was so bold enough to order the French soldiers out of Burkina Faso. And we all know that, not that the French soldiers were helping Burkina Faso in any way. Not that they were trying to keep a lot of peace, or rather just peace in Burkina Faso. No, they were not doing that. They were just exploiting the country's resources. And they take it to the French, or rather to France. And now these Western countries will boast how they are the only countries who are rich, the only countries that does this. You steal and then you take it to the media, to public, that stuff belongs to you. I mean, shame on you. If only our leaders could stand bold and protect us. You see, now most of our leaders, they are being used to oppress us. So who are we to trust? Who are we to turn to when our leaders have turned their backs on us, the people we put into power? Well, what sad times to be alive, mostly in our countries. Well, much love to this factual genius Shahid Bolson, and also to Ibrahim Traore. These are the kind of people we want. The kind of people who have the greater visions for their own country, for their people, and not people who can betray us just because of a few dollars. Much love also from me to you, my viewers, my subscribers. Thank you for this support you've shown me up to this point. We are at 7K subscribers. All of this journey has been possible, and it's because of you. So I have to appreciate you all. Thank you, and thank you again. I'm your host, Larry, and please remember to subscribe if you're yet to subscribe. Like, comment, and share so that this video can be shared to a wider and broader audience. Let's spread this message. And until we meet again, peace out.